If they tried house arrest or
I think it would be tough for the public to take. You know, at a certain point, there's a breaking point.
Joining me now is senior executive editor of Bloomberg Opinion and MSNBC political analyst Tim O'Brien. So, Tim, thanks for being here. It's unclear, of course, right now what punishment Judge Merchan will ultimately choose to give Donald Trump when he sentences him. Do you believe, though, that do you believe Trump when he says he'd be fine going to jail? And do you think he might be even projecting here, trying to put on a brave face when he's saying that he wants to maybe not be worried about this, while also saying that the public won't stand for it? What do you think he's maybe trying to project there?
Well, I think there's two things to unpack there, Yamiche. I think first of all, he is absolutely not comfortable with going to jail. That is just raw bravado. It's been reported in the New York Times, and I've talked to Trump associates who have said that he has said that he doesn't want to serve time, and that all of these judicial proceedings against him have weighed very heavily on him. And remember, there's 3 more criminal trials possibly awaiting him. So the threat of further trials isn't gone. The threat of jail time, prison time, is very present for him right now. And I think he's just putting on a brave face for the sake of his reporters and his own ego, but I don't think he's at all comfortable with it. I think the idea that he would condone violence on the streets for people who are disturbed by the result of what was an abundantly fair judicial process is to be expected, because it's not the first time he's done it. Remember, he watched the January 6th siege on the Capitol from a television in the White House. During rallies for years, he extolled violence and condoned it. So that's part of his character. He's an anarchist at his core, and he's always been willing for, I think, people to take to the streets and put on a show, violent or otherwise, in his own name.
Yeah. Well, I want to dig a bit more into your reaction here. After the verdict was announced, you wrote that Trump's conviction might have terrible consequences for the country. Violence in the streets, political divisiveness, citizens distrustful of the judicial system, but that a Trump guilty verdict was long overdue. Explain what you mean there and why Trump being found guilty really matters here. By a jury, we should say, matters here.
Well, Yamiche, you know, we are a nation of laws, and the reason the laws exist, they're imperfect. Our institutions are imperfect. We routinely find problems with the way justice is administered in this country. But by and large, one of our social bargains is that a nation that is governed and ruled by laws is more civil and civilized than one that isn't. And the cost of observing those laws and respecting the rule of law is most important when it's most under threat. And it's the most under threat in the United States than it's been since the Civil War. So I think it was very important for this process to play out. Donald Trump got convicted under an abundance of very clear and damning information that went well beyond the witnesses, although the witnesses in the case also provided very strong evidence against him. And then a jury of his peers, 2 of whom were lawyers, unanimously found him guilty of 35 felony counts. The system worked as it was supposed to work. And if the consequences of that are political fallout, distrust, violence, that's something I think that we as Americans have to stand up for in this moment. If we actually believe in the rule of law, we have to deal with some of the fallout from others who don't.
Yeah. You also note in your writing that despite the litany of falsehoods about the trial that Donald Trump unleashed outside the courtroom, that Trump got one thing right. The real verdict will be on Election Day. Now, new polls find that more than half of Americans believe the verdict was correct. To what extent do you believe Donald Trump will be able to sort of repurpose his conviction into a political asset to win over voters who are still on the fence here?
I do not think being a convicted felon is a political asset. I think it's not good for any candidate in any situation to have to campaign when they have something like this hanging over their heads. The polls have begun to show that. You have a sentencing on July 11th, about a month and a half from now, that's going to remind people of all of this. Depending on the nature of that sentencing, there are going to be constant reminders. Even if he gets probation, he's going to have to go in and out to meet with his probation officers while campaigning. So all of this is going to be a constant reminder for voters, and I don't think it's going to help him and his campaign at all. I also think, as we know, this campaign is probably going to come down to 6 or 7 swing states and a sliver of voters, probably moderate and independent voters in those states. And I think traditionally those are voters who believe in U.S. institutions, respect the law, and I think would possibly and most likely have a hard time electing someone who's a convicted felon as a result of a court process in which it was revealed that he had a sexual liaison with a porn star and was doctoring his business records to cover it up.
Yeah, well, we will, of course, have to see in November what actually happens,
Yes.
but we'll be following the twists and turns of this as it continues. Thank you so much, Tim O'Brien, for coming on.
Thank you, Yamiche.
And voting is underway in an election that could have huge implications for the United States. That's next.